Hello everybody, welcome back to Adam Talks. Hope you're all recovered. This is the United Stand, 4 PM, back in the routine now that European football has finished for one season. There's been a lot going on at Manchester United. We're going to talk over what happened at weekend, and who better to be on the show with me today than to discuss all of this, but the man who you always look for his opinion after the show and after the matches. Ricky, you've not been on for a few weeks. First of all, it has been one hell of a week. We was in Seville, obviously then travelled back to London for the semi-final. We can talk about that as well in a minute, but how are you doing? You recovered?
All good, mate. Yeah, I've had a fantastic week. Enjoyed it, apart from the game on Thursday night, but got to say the atmosphere at the game was second to none. So, you know, as much as we got battered there, I did quite enjoy being there.
I said what you said. It was the best atmosphere I've been in this season. Probably one of the highest I've been in my lifetime. It was deafening from the word go, wasn't it?
It was.
It was indeed. But topics today, high on the agenda is our captaincy at Manchester United. We're going to do a couple of polls along with this one, but obviously I know most of you would have seen the interview with Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. Great content and a great interview. Vidic was bare bones, just talking exactly what he felt and his time at Manchester United. The captaincy came up, Rick. Right. He's got a few quotes in it, mainly from, his top one was comparing what the captaincy is like these days compared to what it was like back when he played. I think him and Rio both discussed that. And if you haven't seen it already, people, the clips are up on Twitter now and all over the place. But he was basically talking like it's not the same being a captain now as it was back in the day. There's different attributes and it's looked at differently within a football club. First of all, Rick, you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of captains at Manchester United. I know there's a different captain there at every single club. It's not always the shout of the ball. I'll talk about what Vidic said in a minute actually regarding that. But what is the most important attribute as a captain of a football club? And this is the captain of Manchester United as well, so it adds even more significance to it because you're carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders being the captain for United. What's the main attribute for you in a captain, especially at United anyway?
There's probably 2 or 3 different things that could be argued as a main attribute, but I go back a lot further than you, and I remember Martin Buchan, who to me was one of the best captains at United.
Why was he the best? What was his attribute?
Well, I was about to say one of the main attributes was literally leading by example. You know, hardly ever, absolutely immaculate game by game, hardly ever put a foot wrong. So that was my favourite at the time. But then, you know, many years later, Keano became captain, and he was more like sleeves rolled up, get stuck in, bollocking everybody. Do you know what I mean? Different. So that was important, and that was his style. So there's different styles of captaincy, if you like. But there was one incident going back to Martin Buchan, even though he led by example. Quite a famous incident at the time. Gordon Hill, that played on the wing, pretty flamboyant player. He gave the ball away needlessly once. I don't know if you know about this, Adam. I know it's well before your time, but Martin Buchan clipped him round the ear hole. You know what I mean? So it wasn't all just about leading by example.
It's like a keen rollicking. Closest thing I can see to that.
He literally did clip him round the ear hole. Do you know what I mean? So.
You'd probably get a yellow card for that these days, wouldn't you?
Well, I think probably would have done then if the ref, there was no yellow cards then. It was your name in a book in those days. But I think if the ref would have seen it, he probably would have got booked.
Interesting you should say there about leading by example, as I mean, because Vidic actually talks about that. He actually says, I think that's what a captain has to do. And I think Maguire has a problem because he did not perform well. And if you don't perform well, it's difficult to tell other people what to do. That's basically what he's saying. So what Vidic is alluding to is, like you said, first of all, a captain has to perform well and play well and set an example, like you said, like Martin Buchan there. It was like you knew he was going to lead by example. Therefore, you'd gain a bit more respect from your colleagues and your teammates. When he sort of said something, they would always look to him and go, that's what I need to be like. I need to be on it consistently through a game. I think that's what a lot of fans, and the fact that Vidic has come up with that. I mean, he said himself, he prided himself on giving the best performance he could before even going in on anyone else. That's important, isn't it? It
is important, and I just want to step back a little bit to what I just said. When I said that Keano was more, sleeves rolled up and telling everybody what to do, demanding more from the players, that was his style. But he also was a great player, so he was also leading by example as well. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't just the sleeves rolled up stuff. He was a top player. So Keano was a great skipper. Martin Buchan was a great skipper. We've had some fantastic skippers.
That's it there. I mean, Vidic goes on to say he played well for Leicester before. He's played well on the international stage, and I've always backed this comment. I do believe that yeah, it is a big, big thing to play for your country, and the pressure is on that, but it compares to nothing when it comes to Manchester United. It doesn't compare at all for me, and that may be me with my red-tinted glasses on, being a bit biased, but I just feel like the pressure week in, week out of playing for Manchester United, and to be captain of that, it's the bare minimum, is what you said.
Yeah,
I agree. You have to be playing well to be a captain, I think, first and foremost, because no one is going to look at you and go, how's this guy? He's just dropped an absolute clanger. And he's shouting and bawling at me, telling me what I should and shouldn't do. It just doesn't work.
I don't think it works either.
It doesn't work. I mean, guys, I'm going to get your involvement in this now. This is a full-on interactive show. So I'm going to start the first poll of the day. Out of current crop Manchester United players now, I've got a choice of 4 in the poll for you. Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, David De Gea and Casemiro. Obviously, Maguire is captain now, so he's on there. Bruno has been given the biggest shout from the fan base that I've seen for his work rate and his drive and his will to win. David De Gea is been at the club the longest, and Casemiro is the most decorated player at the football club in terms of what he's won in his career. And obviously, a lot of people have asked, if he wasn't actually in his first year at the football club, Casemiro would probably getting more of a shout right now. But who is your ideal captain out of them 4? Who would you pick out of them 4? And the poll is up now. You can get some reasoning if you want to drop some comments in as to why. I sort of divided it in a way as, obviously, the player that's been at the club the longest in David De Gea. You've got the most decorated. You've got the player that plays every single game in Bruno Fernandes and has been given the biggest shout. And obviously, Maguire right now. Are you happy with Maguire as captain right now? So get involved and let me know what you think. Early knockings on this one. Vicky, out of them 4, is creeping up to over 700 votes already. Where do you think that's going early doors? And then give me your pick out of them. From what you've seen.
De Gea, Maguire, Bruno and Casemiro.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind betting that most of the votes are going for Bruno.
Bruno is winning. Bruno is winning. There is 1% that say Maguire.
Right.
But, I mean, you can understand why. And this may not be favourable because of what happened last Thursday night, because De Gea and Maguire make up 4% of the vote. Not many people confident with that. Going off what you said, your best attributes. Out of them 4, Rick, who would your pick be? Or, I'm going to give you the opportunity. You can throw a swerve ball in on there. Is there anyone else?
I'll throw a swerve ball in.
I thought you might go swerve ball.
I'll throw a swerve ball in. I do prefer me captains to be preferably centre-backs, and if not, maybe central midfield players. The centre-backs can see everything that's going on in front of them. They tend to be more consistent players than players in other positions because obviously they've got to be so consistent defenders. So I like defenders as captains, and if not, maybe central midfield players. So I'm not suggesting forever going forward, but so far this season, not so far this season, it's looking like for the rest of this season we're going to be without Varane, we're going to be without Martinez. I wouldn't mind Victor Lindelof being our skipper for the rest of this season.
Victor Lindelof as the captain?
For the rest of this season. I won't mind that one little bit.
Even though he has hardly played?
Well, he's going to have to play, I think, all the time.
But do you feel like other players who've played more would get a bit more respect for playing in the team longer and contributing more this season rather than someone just coming in and taking that armband?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think if I was playing in the team, I'm watching the team and I'm seeing how well he plays. I think he plays well virtually every time he plays, Victor Lindelof. I think he's had a lot of stick over the years for obvious reasons, being linked as a pair. And I just think he's a top player. I think he's a great centre-back. I thought he had a great game in a cup semi the other day. And I wouldn't have any problem whatsoever in him being our skipper for the rest of the season. He's a defender, he's a central defender, he sees everything what's happening in front of him. He's cool and calm on the ball, and I get the feeling that that's how he would deal with people as well if he was a skipper. I think he'd make a good skipper.
Super chat from Enjoy Writing. The age profile of the whole squad must come down. He's coming with another super chat just under there regarding the captains there. He reckons that it should be Lisandro Martinez. None of them players should be captain. It should be Lisandro Martinez.
Well, obviously he's not fit, is he?
Yeah, well, Going off your description there, Rick, and how you're looking at it, I don't think Martinez would come near it. I'm just going to get a few comments from what you just said there. Lindelof may be all right, but I don't see him as a leader. That's from Ben. Let's be honest, anybody is a better captain than Harry Maguire. Luke Shaw, question mark from AC for captain. Lindelof as captain, the captain of Sweden, says Joe.
Is he the captain of Sweden?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it won't surprise me.
I honestly don't know if he is or he isn't. I need to double check on that one. Revel fans picking Maguire in the chat. Yes, that. I think there would be one or two in there. Ollie absolutely destroyed Manchester United. Random comment, but I'm guessing it comes under that category there again. Previous managers and what you just spoke about there, Harry Maguire. He come in and already he's had about 5 managers. Harry Maguire was brought in by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's had Carrick, Solskjaer, Ranić, and obviously Ten Hag now. So 4. Is that 4?
Yeah, 4, yeah.
So, I mean, the disruption, the price tag, everything about Harry Maguire, you can understand to a certain degree why he struggled. When the club's struggling, most players would struggle. We've seen that. You have to be a certain calibre of player to handle disruption behind the scenes and everything going on. I mean, constant manager changes, Rick, that's not helped any one player in this squad.
True.
And what you said then, a lot of players that I've had a lot of criticism, I'll put Victor in that, McTominay in that, Fred in that, a lot of players that have seen carnage behind the scenes, disruption. I think them players have been unfairly criticised a lot of the time because you have to take that into consideration as well. When it's not working right on the training ground, it's hardly ever going to go right on the pitch, is it not? And Harry Maguire, he talks a good game, and I think his talking is probably what's put him in more trouble than what he's doing because he lost his record, Rick. What was it, 11 games he'd won in a row when he'd started.
Right.
He lost that against Seville, and it was largely down to him.
He mentioned that
does.
himself, didn't he?
He talked about that in an interview. You think that's where a lot of the fan base are probably going, I just don't like you.
I'm not sure about that. It's okay
Can a
for
captain
fans.
talk like that individually though? It's not normal,
it's
is it?
Good. It's not good. It's okay for fans to point out things like that. But you might have a favourite player who you might say when he plays we play well, or when he doesn't play we get beat. That's okay for fans, but I don't think it's good for a player to sort of come out and say each time I've played we've won. I really don't think it's good at all.
Marco with a super chat there says Maguire has single-handedly ruined the careers of every centre-back we had. Blaming Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for that one, Mark. There's a hand gesture in there, a little emoji. You can guess what that was. Yeah. But, I mean, you said it there then. Lindelof has been tarnished with the double act. It's pretty much like McFred. Scott, McTominay and Fred.
For a long time, I've said it time and time again to you, I thought McTominay was perfectly fine and I thought Fred was nowhere near good enough. But what I have got to say, he has come on in leaps and bounds, Fred. He come on the other day and he played really, really well in the semi-final. This manager seems to have improved certain players no end. He has, maybe not all of them, but Wan-Bissaka's improved no end, Fred's improved no end. And he plays a lot better now, Fred, than I thought he was capable of. But at the time, I still stick with what I meant at the time that I said it, in that Fred was nowhere near McTominay's level, in my opinion. He might be now, though.
Maguire, Casemiro, Varane, Eriksen, Kane are too old, says Enjoy writing on the super chat. Cheers for that, mate. Casemiro, no. Varane, no. Eriksen, no. Kane, no. On all of them, in my opinion. Maguire, no as well if we're going for age. I mean, age right now, Ricky, you're not one of them players who's bothered about a player's age as long as he's fit enough and playing. I'd say all of them players there have got a good 5 years left in them at top flight.
Yeah,
age doesn't come into captaincy, does it? I mean, it's about performance, surely.
It is about performance, but if you can stick around, performance and experience. If you can stick around at a club like Manchester United and still be playing fairly regular in your early 30s, there's a great shout that maybe you could or maybe even should be the captain, as long as you're playing in the right position, the right type of player. I mean, you might have a striker who's still playing at that age. I wouldn't always go with a striker. But I think if you're a centre-back playing for Man United and you've got 7 or 8 years under your belt and you happen to be 32 or 33, I think you'd be a great shout to be the skipper.
Yeah, a lot of shouts there. Obviously, Bruno is killing the poll at the moment with 79%. A lot of people were picking up on Bruno Fernandes's captain traits in the game, G'ing players up. I want to get your personal opinion. Obviously, you've had a lot to say since Bruno Fernandes has been at the club, Ricky. You've You've gone in on him for his wastefulness. You say it doesn't work with him. But you have then come back and said he's improved in certain areas as well, to be fair to you. It's not all one-sided argument. As a captain, can you see why people are picking Bruno Fernandes? I mean, for what he was doing in terms of going to every single player at the final whistle, making sure everyone's in a positive mind while Harry Maguire is just stood there. This is just what people are reporting and what the press were talking about at the game. I didn't notice it myself, but can you see why people would go with Bruno Fernandes?
Like I said earlier that there's different traits when we spoke about different captains, and they've got different styles of captaincy. Bruno, to me, I agree. Obviously, there's some good bits, like you just said, but there's a bit too often to me that he's moaning at players when it's really they don't deserve moaning at. I think. I mean, I've honestly seen him, play a poor ball that somebody can't get on the end of, and he starts giving them a finger wagging for not being in the right place. Which, to me, just hold your hand up and apologise now and then and say I'm sorry. So for me, he's not my sort of captain. Got to be honest.
Do you feel like the eye test comes into it with fans' opinions? It's like you may see what he does there on the pitch, but then behind the scenes, he may be going up to that player and saying, "This is the reason for that. That's that. I can see what you're." He may talk. I think the eye test sort of blinkers a few fans in terms of what they're looking at and what they see, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, Harry Maguire must be doing something good behind the scenes to still be captain. Vidic has said it in his comments there. Again, he says, as a captain, the team need to trust you, and the manager, most importantly, needs to trust you because you're his eyes and his ears on the pitch, and the message is relayed through you. The manager's message goes through the captain. Ten Hag has continuously backed Harry Maguire. Yeah. But is the silent bit, they're not starting him, and him being, I still say, fourth choice behind Luke Shaw when everyone's fit at centre-backs. The big games, and we have to judge it off big games.
It's fifth choice, isn't it?
Well, Lindelof.
Martinez, Lindelof, Shaw. I'm sure of it. Lindelof played a few games while Maguire was on the bench. Only a few weeks ago. Do you think that's
a subtle way of Ten Hag dealing with a situation? It's like, I'm not just gonna cast him away. He is still a captain, but when everyone's fit, you're not starting first. That, for me alone, I've got a big issue with. To be honest, I just think that messes with the players' heads. I think the captain has to be playing week in, week out. That's one for me, and he's not. I think that's why, obviously, Bruno gets a big shout on this as well. His fitness levels, we'll talk about that in a bit, because it looks like he might actually be injured for Spurs, Bruno, but his fitness and his injury record is impeccable. So Harry Maguire's is, but you've got to be playing well enough, and Ten Hag clearly doesn't think he's playing well enough, otherwise he would have picked him ahead of Lindelof, ahead of Luke Shaw for the derby, because he's fit. At one point, in that Manchester derby, I think we had 3 international centre-backs sat on the bench and Luke Shaw was playing at centre-back. And I'm talking Martinez, Maguire, Lindelof. That says a lot to me, and that's what I cannot figure out, how he sees that man as a captain when he can't get ahead of a player who's playing centre-back for the first time in his career.
Well, I'll say 2 things about that. First of all, it shows you how good Luke Shaw is and how much he respects the job that Luke Shaw can do. There's still a lot of people I see saying sell Luke Shaw, and I just cannot get my head around it. I've seen it on Twitter many, many times where people give a list of who they need to get rid of.
You didn't get involved in it, did you?
Didn't get involved in it.
Didn't bite, did you?
No, I didn't bite. No, I didn't.
Man.
But he's absolutely fantastic. He's our best left back. In fact, I stood outside Old Trafford with you when I did a fan cam. I've not done many fan cams recently, but we did one straight after it was either the Bournemouth game or the Forest game in the league. We won 3-0 at home twice in the space of a week or so.
Both of them games, yeah.
And Luke Shaw played as a centre-back because of injuries and suspensions or whatever it was on that night. And I stood there and then and said to you, we haven't had a better performance from a centre-back all season. And I looked at the comments that night and most people were laughing at me. And that was the first time that he'd used him there. And since there, he's played him there in the Manchester derby, and he's played him there in 1 or 2 other games as well. And he's played him there in the FA Cup semi-final. And he's absolutely superb, Luke Shaw, whether you use him at left-back or at centre-back.
FA Cup semi-final, Barcelona away, Manchester derby.
You know what I mean? Proper games.
They're the ones that back up the argument. They're the ones that back up the argument that Maguire is 4th or 5th choice. And that's our captain.
Yeah.
So
getting back to the point in question, don't forget we said that you're supposed to lead by example.
Yeah.
So you're certainly not leading by example. Certainly, I mean, you could lead by example in the way you hold yourself, the way you speak, the way you train, the way you speak to your teammates in training. All of those things are leading by example. But you need to lead by example on the field with your performances. And if you're not getting in the team, I don't think it can last very long that you would be a club captain.
Yeah, as for about the importance of age, it's vital. Super chat from Edit right in there. Yeah, Bruno and Casemiro. Maguire play for Wrexham. Hi everyone, hope well. Yeah, just reading through a few of these comments there. And to be honest, it isn't. I mean, everyone's saying that Bruno Fernandes is doing a good job. He has done a good job. I mean, we're having a successful season so far, so it works. The players are actually liking Bruno as captain, but it is a big one. And I think right there we've just described why Maguire isn't favourite for captain. The fans, like I said, the eye test doesn't lie. When your manager is saying one thing, but then when it comes to the bread and butter and he selects that team and Maguire's not in that team when everyone's available, that's not a captain for me. And I just don't know why. I don't know if he's not done it because he's just come in, he's new, first year in the job. I do believe that will all change in the summer. I think it has to. I think for it to work and go to the next level, I can't see Maguire getting in the team again. Therefore, it would just be right not to make him the captain,
Surely, when a new season starts, he's going to want to have a captain who's actually on the field of play, I would have thought.
Right, let's check who the people want as their captain. The votes are in. Well over 3,500 votes on the poll. Harry Maguire's got 2%, followed by David De Gea at 3%, Casemiro 15%, and Bruno Fernandes at 80% of the votes. People are happy with Bruno. I'm going to put another poll up right now, but Ricky, I'm going to come to you first. This talks about the traits of a captain. I'm going to throw a few over the last, the last 15 to 20 years, captains-wise. Another top four. Guys, get your opinions on this. Get your votes in as well. Top four, here we go. Robbo, Cantona, Roy Keane, and the Nemanja Vidic. Now then, in terms of positions that you've talked about, where you like your captains to be, can I cancel out maybe
Eric.
one of them?
Yeah,
Cantona has gone for you, Rick.
Yeah.
Leaves you with Vidic, Robbo, and Keano. 2 centre midfielders and a centre back. That's where your position is. Now, all three of them led by example.
Yeah.
I would say Robbo and Keano will probably inspirate. I mean, to be honest, they'd all run through brick walls for you, wouldn't they? So it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, it's splitting.
Depends on your era, what year you started watching United, what you're used to watching. But I feel they're the replacements for each other. They sort of just carried on. I know there was other ones in between. We've got your Beckhams, Gary Nevilles, things like that. But for me, that was like the role of captains. All them went in a row for me of importance. From one finished, pretty much the next one was in. So for me, it was like Robson, Cantona, Keano, Vidic. That's how that went. Where are you at with that? And guys, get your votes. And I'm intrigued to know what you think about this one. And actually, make this part of your vote as well, actually. Which one of them captains would you take in Manchester United's team right now? What type of captain? Which one of them, for their position and how they played and inspiration, leadership, which one of them would you put in? Make that part of your vote as well, not just who you think was the best of all time. I know there are other ones before it and after it, but for now, because we've only got 4 on YouTube, who would you pick, Rick?
Depends how seriously you're taking it. Obviously, it's hypothetical.
All right, with us, let's go. Which one of them captains would you replace Maguire with right now?
Well, this is what I was going to say. At this precise moment in time, we are short of centre-back, so we'll definitely go with Vidic, basically, because we need a centre-back.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
See that.
But if we had everybody fit and there was no problems with the squad, and even though I said earlier that I would normally go for the centre-back, it'd have to be between Keano and Robbo. They're both absolutely unbelievable players who both led by example, rolled the sleeves up, got stuck in, told people what to do and let them know if they were doing anything wrong.
Keano.
Well, no, that was Marty Booker and the clip round here.
I think he'd
probably do the same. Yeah, he'd probably do the same. So I'd have to say more or less a toss-up between Keano and Robbo, but I'd probably just about go with Keano. Just about, yeah. So Vidic, just despite being a centre-back, he'd be third choice, apart from right now, as we speak, because we need centre-backs at the minute.
A centre-back and the captain. It would be the ideal replacement. I can see where you're going from. But I'm with you. I mean, I love Eric. How he inspired that class of 92 was something else. I'll never forget that season. And to be honest, I'll never forget that FA Cup final against Liverpool and that goal at Wembley in the last minute. That was just epic. Super chat in from Adhi says, Maguire still captain because he has a very bad mental health and the manager's aware of that, so they don't want to destroy his mentality and his confidence. I don't think you can afford to be like that. I mean, sometimes you have to make tough calls as a manager. And I think you have to be quite harsh on yourself as a captain as well. Like Harry Maguire is talking a game that I just don't think he's played this season. I think he's very, very bullish and confident. I like that. I've said before, and I think he's got the mentality of a Manchester United player. I just don't think he's played like one. I think he thinks he's playing well enough, and he thinks he should be Manchester United captain. You want every player coming to Manchester United to be confident in themselves, Rick, but you still got to back it up. And the criticism he's been getting, surely it's sinking in that he's not playing well enough. You would have thought, wouldn't you, that he can't be happy with his game.
Will he come back into the team on Thursday night, I wonder?
That's an interesting shout, that. Luke Shaw, Lindelof, the cup final winning, the semi-final winning team, a Brighton team which was destroying everyone in their path, playing really well, restricted to scraps by that defensive display from United. A lot of people would look at that and go, don't change it. Don't change it. Would you? Would you keep the same with who's available?
I don't know about the fitness of the players. That's something, I mean, I was thinking about Luke Shaw was injured, wasn't he, just before this game and didn't play at all. Or he came on as a sub, I think, didn't he? In Seville, did he come on? Yeah, he did. He came on at half time, but he was struggling with injury a little bit leading up to that game. So whether he might think it might make sense to leave Luke Shaw out of this one, sit him on the bench, I don't know. Look. If everybody was perfectly fully fit and there was no problems whatsoever, I'd stick with the back four that played at the weekend.
I think I'd go the same. The poll is finished on captain for right now. Roy Keane takes it with 63%. Robson only 5%, goes to show exactly how old our fan base is right here, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
If you don't understand what Brian Robson was and what he did for this club, then you probably weren't alive to watch it. That's all I would say. Why aren't Ollie's terrible decisions like making... Sorry, polls has come up in front of that super chat there, sorry. Actually, I'll come to that super chat in a minute, but just going off what me and Ricky were saying there, we have got a new poll in the chat. Possible centre-back partnerships for the Spurs game on Thursday. Lindelof, Maguire, Lindelof and Shaw, Maguire and Shaw. I've got horrible flashbacks to another Tottenham game when we got beat 6-1 at Old Trafford with Maguire and Shaw's performance. And I know they weren't playing at centre-back next to each other that day, but that image of Harry Maguire dragging Luke Shaw to the ground just... I would go away from Shaw and Maguire personally.
I don't think you can blame Luke Shaw for that, though.
No, I don't. That's why I'm thinking 98% of people at the moment are saying Lindelof and Shaw. And that's with 500 votes straight out the box. So I think it says everything there. I think you're right, Rick. I think most people are agreeing with you, and I do it myself. Why aren't Ollie's terrible decisions like making Maguire captain talked about more in the media, Adam and Ricky? That's a question to us. Love to know your thoughts. Ricky, we did touch on it a little bit regarding the carnage behind the scenes with certain players and being affected, but do you feel like it has been a bit different? There's been more scrutiny on what managers like Ten Hag have done, what Ranić has done. Ollie seemed to get... and what the comments saying there, seems to get an easy ride with a lot of the media. It's not been discussed of the aftermath of what he brought. Funnily enough, in that Vidic and Rio, I just want to go back to that quickly. Vidic says the only regret he's got at Manchester United was the fact that Ed Woodward wasn't in charge. No. And Rio laughed at him and he went, that's just simply because of the money, isn't it? And how much these players are getting given these days. He went, yeah, that's it. I've laughed it off and joked it, but he said, that's the only regret I've got. from being at United is that Ed Woodward wasn't in charge. It goes to show, doesn't it? Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer have done a lot of damage to this football club. And it's that decision that he made, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, for Maguire only being, a season and a half into his United career, to make him captain.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Do you feel like what Solskjaer did has hampered a lot of what's going on at the club right now?
I think a lot of what Solskjaer did hampered the club. I think he made a lot of poor decisions. Some of his signings weren't very good. Some of his players that he let them go too early. You know what I mean? I wasn't happy with Solskjaer whatsoever, so it's bound to have a knock-on effect, and it takes a lot of sorting out, and fingers crossed Ten Hag's going the right way about it.
Maguire contributes so little, spoken of too much, says Enjoy Writing. I mean, do you feel like if Ten Hag was in charge, Manchester United would have bought Cristiano Ronaldo? For me personally, I'll get your opinion on this, I thought Solskjaer had his signings done and Ronaldo came on the scene, and I think Ronaldo didn't fit at the time. Didn't fit, and I think Solskjaer didn't have the backbone to say, we can't bring one of the club legends back to Manchester United for the sake of his own career. That's how I see it. I think he was put under pressure by the likes of Woodward, like the comments just said there. It's like not just Solskjaer, but that reign of Woodward has caused absolute carnage at this football club. And I think that's got a lot to blame with the difficult decisions that Ten Hag's having to make now. I mean, we just mentioned two. Ronaldo coming in when we didn't need him, and Maguire being made captain, both on Solskjaer's, both on his watch. Yeah. So you look at that and go, Ten Hag is having to deal with them, and I think has dealt with them well this season. But I don't think under this regime, if a big marquee signing came up now, Ten Hag didn't want that signing. I don't think we'd get him. I think the club bought Ronaldo in, not Solskjaer. Yeah, I don't think Solskjaer had a say, personally. And I think this type of manager is what this club's been missing.
You might well be right, but I've got to say this, certainly 90 or 99% of the fans even were absolutely over the moon when Ronaldo came back. So, anybody...
Myself included.
Yeah, most people probably thought it was going to be fantastic, you know what I mean? But it didn't work out well, did it?
My son started watching or coming to Manchester United games at the start of the David Moyes era. He'd not seen Ronaldo, never seen him play. He's not as lucky as what we did. And all he's known is crap, basically. If David Moyes onwards, it's been really poor for Manchester United. He missed out on Sir Alex Ferguson by a season. He started going when he was 4.
Right.
So I made sure that he had a season ticket at 4. I did the dad thing, the supporter thing.
Yeah.
So I remember last season when everyone was saying Ronaldo had a great season. And I'll never forget it. He hated it. He hated Ronaldo. He says, Dad, he said, he's crap.
Did he?
He's crap, Dad. What's he doing? He said, he's one of the laziest players I've ever seen play. And he'd not seen Ronaldo before. He's seen clips and stuff, but that then showed to me that no matter how bad a player was playing, I don't think the manager had full control. It just didn't seem like we've got what we've got now. This new regime and the way that the club backed Ten Hag in dealing with Ronaldo, I think has set a standard now. That's how I see it, because for my son to say Ronaldo is crap,
a lot of people still thought that he was going to be a lot of people still thought he was an important player for us, because was it 18 league goals he got last season? And I said at the time, it's a team game, we'll still score the amount of goals we scored. I've said this on the fans forum many times, and I said when he leaves, we will still score just as many goals. We're not scoring enough goals for it to affect us too much if a star player leaves. We're still going to, because we're getting so few goals, and it still applies now. It still applies now. We're not scoring enough goals. The team needs to play better and make more chances and get more goals in that manner, whoever the goal scorer is. So Ronaldo came and went, and nothing's changed. Nothing will change again if we were to lose another star player.
Just going to read a few super chats regarding Maguire now. Aaron STGC says, Maguire has never had a headline moment as a centre-back. It's always for the wrong reasons. Even when you think he has given a chance to right his wrong. Even when he's been given a chance to right his wrongs. I mean, every player would love a chance to right the wrongs. You've got to make that happen yourself, to be honest. Maguire is good at pointing. Would be great at air traffic control, says SK. Well, it's up to them. They can say what they want. Ryan Pittin with the celebratory super chat. Cheers for that, mate. First super chat with no super chat comment on it. Good start. I'll try again if you can, Ryan, mate. But I mean, Rick, they're the main headlines going on right now. We're going to look ahead to Spurs as well. But first of all, you weren't on the forum. You was at Wembley, so you've missed out. You missed out on your opinion in the Seville game as well. Your thoughts, basically, in terms of how you've seen the games go down. I mean, we'll probably leave Seville because we haven't got enough time. Yeah. I think everyone will leave Seville.
Yeah, we'd rather leave that one, won't we? Yeah.
In terms of a comeback from that, were you impressed with the performance? Not many chances created, very, very stalemate game, but were you impressed with how we defended, more importantly, after that debacle that was Seville?
Without a doubt, I was really, really pleased. I thought, I've seen some people saying it wasn't a very good game. I thought it was a cracking game. It was a game for the connoisseur. It looked, and I like it when United look like a good team. You know, it looked like two really good teams, and we're not normally really good in my opinion. We sometimes play well, but I thought it looked like two really good teams who were well organised, difficult to break down, and passing the ball around well at times. Obviously, they're also two good teams, but they're also good at winning the ball back. So as much as they're passing the ball around well, sometimes it surprised you how quick the Brighton players were in to win the ball back at times, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was just a really good game, I thought, between two teams that looked good. Wasn't surprised to see the stalemate. There wasn't that many good chances, was there? Probably, well, there's hardly any good chances. We had like 3 half chances, didn't we? I remember Bruno shooting wide from the inside right position. Martial tried to chip the keeper from 35, 40 yards.
Eriksen's pass back.
Eriksen's, yeah, that was a poor effort by Eriksen. And probably, was it our best effort? I mean, it wasn't that good. The effort by Marcus from the edge of the box, it was a fairly comfortable save.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I think there's probably about 4, not good chances, but just half chances.
Nothing clear cut.
Nothing clear cut. And it was pretty similar for them, pretty similar. So the defences were on top. It was a proper interesting game with a lot of good players on show in both sides.
That's interesting because the last few times we played, Brighton, they've had our number. And this goes to show we've actually done a bit of homework. I think Ten Hag had done homework on Brighton. He knew what was coming, because that's as poor as I've seen Brighton play for a while now. They've been tearing teams apart in the Premier League, and for us to actually stop them, having had a full week preparation, no excuse for Brighton. Yeah, they're missing a few players. I understand that, but with Manchester United coming off the back of that result in Seville, obviously disruption in the back. We've got one fit centre-back in the team. That was Brighton's chance for me to really get to a final. And I think Manchester United's tactics nullified them.
While I was away last week, I watched Chelsea versus Brighton at Stamford Bridge as well. And I know Chelsea are not what they used to be, but Brighton absolutely ripped them to shreds, Adam. I've not seen a team rip Chelsea apart like that at the Bridge since I can remember. You know, they only scored twice, but they had, like I've just said, they didn't really have a real good clear-cut chance, as I can remember. There was the one where the kid miscontrolled it and Dalot cleared it. That was a clear-cut chance if he would have controlled it, but he didn't control it. But against Chelsea, they must have had 6 or 8 really good clear. You're never going to score them all, but they had 6 or 8 really good clear-cut chances. They ripped them apart. So for us to play against them and virtually completely stop them, I thought it was a great performance.
Here's one of these Ronaldo comments here right now, just to test the water. Ricky, what do you think of the Neymar rumours? I didn't even know they were about, to be honest, but they are. Someone's reporting Neymar to Manchester United. Is that the type of player we should avoid or should go for right now?
That's a tricky one. He's obviously a brilliant player. He's absolutely brilliant.
It's a team game, mate.
It is a team game. When people talk about these brilliant players, obviously I've seen him play, and I've said this many, many times. I'm not really concentrating on these players because they're not playing for my club. You know what I'm like. I watch a player for my club. You know, I didn't rate Harry Maguire after I'd seen him play 4 times. You know what I mean? When everybody else was raving about him, the famous video out there of me saying that. Do you know what I mean? And there's loads of players that come into the team, and once I've watched them a few times, I'm not really sure about that. Even though I might have seen these players. I'd obviously seen Harry Maguire play 10 or 20 times before for Leicester or for England. Was he playing for England when we signed him? I think he was, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. So you're not concentrated fully on, oh, he didn't, he gave it away a bit too often. He dribbled it when he should have passed it too often. You're not really bothered when someone's playing for another club. So as much as Neymar's a brilliant player, 99%, millions and millions of people know that Neymar's a brilliant player, but 99% of them just know that anyway, without watching him and making their own mind up, if you understand what I mean.
No.
So whether I've, obviously, going off his record, going off his reputation, obviously I'd like us to sign him. But I'll tell you what, I'd love to watch him 6 or 8 times for us before we did do that. Do you know what I mean?
Evan Ferguson or Neymar as a striker?
But how old's Neymar?
Oh, Neymar's late 20s now, I'm pretty certain.
Evan Ferguson.
From Brighton.
Yeah.
Ferguson.
Yeah, I won't mind Ferguson at all. Yeah, he looks a good
It goes
player.
to show, doesn't it, when you're thinking about team and the future.
Yeah.
I suppose that brings up the conversation between the likes of Kane and Osimhen and things like that. You just got to look at it from different angles and what you think might work best. Potential or proven. But for me, Neymar isn't proven. I think your quality of the player is not proven in the Prem.
He's not proven in the Prem. Like, if somebody said to me, Evan Ferguson or Harry Kane, I'd like them both, but even though he's a lot older, I'd like us to start competing for the top trophies next season.
Yeah.
And I believe Harry Kane, as great as Neymar is, he might not be the style of player that will suit the other players. Harry Kane's a team player as well as being able to score goals. I've seen enough of Harry Kane. As much as I've seen Neymar, I've watched Harry Kane play 20 times more than I've seen Neymar play. And I've seen him play well in the Premier League on regular occasions. So if we could get Harry Kane, even though he might only keep us as a top side for 2 or 3 seasons, or help us to be a top side for 2 or 3 seasons, during that period, hopefully somebody else comes in to take over the mantle.
That's it. Super chat in from Iraqi says, it was just criminal how Erik Ten Hag was left at the mercy of Wout Weghorst up front in January. Ten Hag has done unthinkable. Again, January transfer window topic is going to sway towards the summer window very soon. Obviously, we're going to get news regarding the ownership next week after this week's deadline's passed. So that will be interesting to see there. Obviously, I don't know if you've seen it in terms of the Damesh interview from Sky Sports that we did while we was in Seville, talking about how the decision might not even be left to Harry Kane. Then you leave, you could just say, I've got an option to add a year on. I could take 2 more years of Harry Kane. We've got a better chance of getting in the Champions League with Harry Kane. It's going to be a tough summer. Harry Kane will be up against us on Thursday. And Tottenham, if there was one club in turmoil, there's a few actually this season, just thankfully it's not ours, but Tottenham right now on their second interim manager. This game on Thursday, Rick, it's not so much a new manager bounce, but Schiellini has gone. He's been fired now, or just let go, whichever way you want to describe it. He's gone. He's out the door. The players are refunding the fans for the Newcastle game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know where United's refund was for the 7-0 against Liverpool. You've not done bad there, Spurs fans, man. But Spurs, we've got a good record at the new stadium. We've not been beaten there yet. I think it's maybe 3 wins or 2 wins and a draw. Not too bad. Last season, we ended another manager in Nuno at the ground. Bruno might not be fit for this game, Rick. We're talking about the centre-back partnerships. Confident going into this game. Spurs on paper look in a right 2-8.
They look in a right mess. How many new manager bounces can you have? This is the third manager this season, so whether it'll have any effect. I often talk about new manager bounces. We fell for it at Aston Villa, didn't we, when we got beat 3-1? They absolutely murdered us. So whether this new manager can have that effect on Spurs, I'm not so sure. But certainly after, we're going to be in a confident vein of form. After the weekend anyway. So I think we'll be all right. I think we'll play well enough, but if Spurs are right up for it, I mentioned this on an Instagram post that I did last week. At Sevilla, despite the fact that we had 1 or 2 players missing, if those players were fit, I still believe, look, you never know for certain once you change something in a team, but I still believe that we probably would have got beat. Like you've just said, the atmosphere was electric. You could see the adrenaline coursing through the veins of the players that were playing for Sevilla. And I fancied they'd have beaten most teams on that night, let alone us. They might have beat City or something the way they were playing that night. Do you know what I mean? So if Spurs can get that, if they've got a crowd behind them, if the new manager can really get them fired up, we might find that we're on an 9-0 come Thursday night. Hopefully not.
Yeah, God, I hope not. Predictions for Spurs, the poll is up in the chat. United win, Spurs win, or a draw. Get voting now, people, on that one. Super chat in from Post Life says, Adam and Ricky, just wanted to say I appreciate you both. Cheers from Los Angeles. Thanks very much, mate. Loving the support. Another super chat in again from Enjoy Writing. Cheers for that, mate. That's about your 5th one of the show. Thank you for all your contributions, everyone, throughout the show, as always. Neymar, we shouldn't go near him. PSG leftovers. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. We've not agreed on much tonight on the super chat there, but I agree with that one. I wouldn't go near Neymar. I think that ship has sailed for players like that coming in. Spurs, I'm in agreement with you, Rick. I'm afraid I am worried about Thursday night. I just feel like there is a backlash after a performance like that against Newcastle, when you've got players and managers coming out apologising, players refunding fans. You just look at it and you go, there's got to be a reaction. There has to be. And I've looked at Spurs sometimes and I've gone, they're in a mess. And then they beat Manchester City, continuously beat Manchester City and give them a game. I'm like, there's something in this Spurs team that you have to be worried about. They have got players that,
if they turn up,
can.
They beat City this season, haven't they?
They have, yeah. They have. They've done it again.
Yeah, don't assume that they can't beat us on Thursday night.
It's
Whoever
crazy.
plays.
When the atmosphere is up in that stadium, it works well for them. And I think they're going to need, if they get the fans, because on paper we're better than Seville. We knew we were better than Seville on paper. There's a reason why they sacked their manager before we played them. We were having a terrible season. But they had an attitude and a determination which we couldn't compete with. Yeah. It's bare minimum that we just match up Spurs and their energy levels on Thursday. And the quality should show through, Rick, but we cannot let them get on top of us. We cannot make mistakes. We're inviting teams on by making mistakes right now. And I feel that's why we have to go with the same defence as we did against Brighton. I can't remember one mistake that we made in that game that gave Brighton any encouragement whatsoever. We did it in the first 7 minutes against Seville and we cost us. We then kept on making mistakes and they fed off the atmosphere of the crowd. When you let that crowd get into it, Rick, how important is that you try and avoid that on these big away games?
Yeah, you want to try and quieten the crowd down. The best way of doing that is to try and get a goal early doors. That can quieten the team down. Going back to our possible back four again in this game, I would stick with the back four. We already touched on it, I think, twice, but I would stick with the back four. It won't surprise me whatsoever if he brings Harry Maguire in to physically match up against Harry Kane. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. If he does do that, I think you'll see Maguire and Lindelof, and I think Shaw will play, and then either Dalot or Wan-Bissaka at right back. So I won't be surprised if I'm not suggesting he will for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. I for one won't be surprised if that's what happens on Thursday night.
Question for you, Eric, actually. Well, a super chat coming from Darren Mulaney says, I would like to see McAllister and Ramos next season. What do you both think of them players? Ramos is obviously the Benfica striker, the one who scored the hat-trick in the World Cup for Portugal, in place of Ronaldo, I add. Obviously, Alexis McAllister, hot topic at the moment, World Cup winner, and he's having a great season for Brighton. I mean, Brighton's conveyor belt of talent and recruitment is shining for everyone to see at the moment. McAllister part of that. In terms of types of midfielders, we've all said we need midfielders and strikers. Out of them two, Rick, from what Darren said in the super chat there, do you rate either one of them?
McAllister or the Benfica striker? Not
Do
seen
you
enough.
know much of Ramos?
I don't know enough about Ramos. I can't really comment on it. I've not seen him enough. I watched Brighton a lot. McAllister to me is more of a number 10 and probably a competitor for Bruno's.
I think Caicedo's the one that gives him the freedom, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think Caicedo would be more like my player to sign for United. But McAllister's a good player, without a doubt. And the other thing about that as well is, obviously, we've used Bruno in a slightly deeper role just recently, haven't we? So they could both fit into the same team. They could both fit into the same team, but I think the manager in the long run would prefer a defensive. Like Bruno plays as a deep player, but he's not a defensive type player when he plays there. He's more of an attacking player from deep. So I don't think he'd do that on a regular basis. So if you sign McAllister, I think it'd be between Bruno and McAllister to get in the team, pretty regularly. So I'm not too sure many people would be happy with that. Something I just wanted to mention there that skipped my mind when we're talking about the back four and whether Maguire might come in or not. At the weekend, I should have touched on this when we were speaking about that game. Did you realise how much more often we kicked it long? They've obviously decided that playing out from the back, not that he did it every time, but we often kicked it long, either straight from the keeper, or we might play it out, play it back to the keeper and then kick it long. So we were clearing our lines a lot more often, which made it more difficult. They weren't going to nick the ball off us in the final third, and rarely did, because we didn't play out from the back as much on Sunday as we were doing in Spain. Now that I wish we'd have done that in Spain. If we'd have been kicking that ball long when there was 3 players around Maguire, maybe we'd still be in the Europa League now. We'll never know. Do you know what I mean? So I think that was the plan coming into that game. And then looking forward now to Thursday night, I think they'll play in the same manner. So if Maguire does play, if he is playing, he'll be in there to compete with Kane aerially. And I don't think you'll find that we're playing out from the back too often. I think we'll be knocking long balls and trying to win the second ball.
I agree. The second ball is an option sometimes, especially when you've got players like Weghorst in there as well. I think Martial holds the ball up better as well when you've got him there. So it's not all about the height of it. The long ball doesn't necessarily have to be a big have it, up it goes and bring it down. So I do agree with that. We're asking too much of Casemiro. We need cover, says Justin. Cheers for the super chat again. As always, cheers everyone for your super chats. Rick, centre forward, centre midfielder. If you could definitely get to, forget about like the complications, who would your 2 be?
Centre forward and centre midfield player.
I think like the people are saying now, we need cover in centre mid because we've seen the lacking numbers there. So you could go out right now. You've got the money, and you've got enough money to convince even the clubs that are going to be tight-fisted and hold on to their players as much as you can. You can go and get anyone. You've got enough to go and spend over the top. There's 2 players, spine of the team. Who are you 2?
Well, if you say anyone, I think it'd be a bit far-fetched to say that we could get Haaland or Mbappe.
Yeah,
so rule them out.
Yeah,
but
the obvious.
Certainly,
that's a total left field.
If we can actually get Harry Kane, I'd be over the moon with Harry Kane, definitely.
Yeah,
I'd be over the moon.
Harry Kane would be your first goal.
I think so. Yeah. Like I say,
Okay.
like I said before, I know is he 30 now, coming up 31. I think he'll be. He's obviously a top pro. I think he'll be fully fit to play for at least say another 3 years. And we don't need to look further than that. In those 3 years, you might unearth some superstar coming through the ranks, or we might nick somebody from like Brighton do. They've signed that Ferguson from somewhere. I don't know where they've got him from. So you might find a coming superstar during those 3 years. So I don't need to look further than that. I really don't. So I'll be happy with Kane, definitely, and central midfield player. I won't be disappointed if we got Caicedo, as we just said.
Caicedo, he was given. Do you agree, man of the match for him on Sunday?
Certainly up there. I thought Lindelof had a shout for it. Lindelof. I think the best players on the field were Lindelof, Shaw and Caicedo.
Out of everyone, obviously we had technical issues with getting the vlogs up weekend. We spoke to 6 different fans. I listened to bits of the forum. I listened to Mark's comments after the game. It was a landslide, and you've just topped it off, Rick, because you would have picked Lindelof as well of yours. Nearly every single one. This was Faz, Beth, yourself, me, even the other fan vloggers who were doing it. Graham picked it as well. Lindelof was complete standout.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I remember Mark's commentary over it when he said, "Come on, if you get this, if you score this, it's man of the match for you, Victor. Even though you're already man of the match." It was like exactly how I was seeing it, and that's why I didn't see him missing. I didn't see Lindelof. In my head, I thought we've won.
I was confident he was going to score.
Yeah, in my head, I thought we've won. Yeah. We've won. I know David De Gea said that as well, and the players are all bigging him up there because he is ice cold. He's got the nickname of the Iceman, but I thought that was a big moment for Victor Lindelof, and I think that is what will keep him his place in the team. That's how I see it. But Also, before we finish, Rick, you like Jadon Sancho, I know you do. You think there's a player there. He's not been playing great. He's been getting a lot of criticism recently. Having come back, having spent such a long time out. I gave him like the biggest shout out for, first of all, standing up and taking it. Because Sancho's problems, I think, started with that European, the European finals penalty miss for England. I think he struggled from that moment to deal with the abuse that he's got, and obviously he's gone away, dealt with his mental issues, mental health issues, come back, and there's a lot of scope and a lot of pressure on him. That moment and that penalty, I gave him massive props for that. I thought, hopefully that would be his defining moment this season, something that can give him confidence going forward. I know we just look at penalties and go, oh, you won by penalties, but they do have big significance, because the moments, just having to stand up under that pressure and score that goal. And this is why it gets annoying when people say to me, yeah, but all them goals he scored in the season, half of them were penalties. I think it's harder to score a penalty than it is a normal goal half of the time, I think. It's just, there's too much to think about. That moment there for Jadon Sancho, turning point, can you see him moving on from it? And how important is it that you don't discard the penalty shootout? It's still a win, and it was big for them players. Rain coming down, the Brighton end, they scored all their penalties before ours. To stand up and have that confidence, that shows the mentality that's in this team now under Ten Hag.
I heard it said that we had only won one of our previous 8 penalty shootouts. So as a, you know, I mean, look, there
took two natural penalty takers off, Bruno and Martial.
Yeah, as well. I think they deserve a lot of credit for winning the penalty shootout. I think there's a lot of really good penalties, calm penalties, like you just mentioned, Sancho. It was a fantastic penalty as well. No keeper was going to save it. Getting back to your question about Sancho, you know I like him in a big way. I never think that he's playing as badly as most people, or as a lot of people think he is. I like the fact that he sees the passes, and I've said this on a show one evening. Somebody said to me, and this was a criticism of him, that all he does when he gets it is pass it, and I'm going, and that's a criticism, is it? You know what I mean? I like the way Sancho plays. I like the way he plays with his head up. He sees the right passes. Obviously, you know, every forward is going to get out strength now and then. Every forward's going to miscontrol it now and then with players around you. So look, it's easy to pick on 1 or 2 little things that go wrong and say, oh, that was poor, that was poor. And if they do 2 or 3 poor things, people think they've had a bad game. But I don't think Sancho plays badly very often at all. And I hope that people do get more behind him now that he's scored that penalty. It's a cracking penalty, and I agree with you that when you say turning point, I don't need him to play a hell of a lot better than he is playing. I think he's fine, but hopefully it gets a lot more people behind him.
That's it. Well said. Hopefully that is a turning point for Jadon Sancho, and hopefully a few of the other players as well. Some fringe players having decent games in that game as well. Big up. I mean, we've not even had a chance to talk about Wan-Bissaka and his contracts that's apparently being talked about. Another player that's come through under Ten Hag that looked like he was on the way out, now fighting for a first team spot. We've got players playing like Dalot at left back now, not his natural position. Shaw playing at centre back, all under Ten Hag's watch, and that for me is the biggest positive. But the mental side of things is the biggest one. That winning mentality. Yeah, we're not playing well, but we're in another final. That's it. We're gonna hit, I think, 61 games in total this season. 62 is the record. I think the 16-17 season.
Right. 61
games this season. You have to be in competitions for a long time to play that many, Rick.
Yeah,
considering he's only 38 in a league season, to nearly at
so we could have broke a record if we'd have
if we'd have got through, we'd have broke a record as well. It's under Ten Hag. The final is the final on its own. We'll see that when it comes. There's a few more of these shows before then. I'd love you all to come back and watch us. We'll be back next Tuesday as well. Big night on Thursday. Big night on Thursday. I think Manchester United can solidify top 4, in my opinion, with a win against Spurs. I think that puts them out of it as well. So massive importance on that. Rick, cheers for coming on as always.
Pleasure, mate.
A pleasure.
Enjoyed it, thank you.
And guys, cheers for all your comments and cheers for all your super chats as always. You've been absolutely on it today. And obviously we'll be back tonight. Well, Mark will be back later on tonight, and we will be back tomorrow, just building up to the Tottenham game and bringing you any other news that breaks from Manchester United, including club and takeover news, hopefully, if that comes. But yeah, guys, cheers for watching. We'll be back, like I said, the rest of this week, and a big night on Thursday. Like, share and subscribe to the United Stand. See you later.